We have this story from scnr.com. Dana White explains free speech to reporter. Quote, free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want. So following the fight with Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, Sean had made several statements in the past about trans people and, people who have gay kids and things like that. He mostly called a reporter a weak man who was the enemy. He said that he was there to stand up for the people of Canada, F Trudeau. During the fight, people were chanting F Trudeau. Joe Rogan said, Canada, get your ish together, man. But I love the UFC fan base. I love the fighters. We saw Donald Trump come out at a UFC event, Madison Square Garden, with Kid Rock and Tucker Carlson. The whole crowd in New York City screaming and cheering for these individuals. It's beautiful. And so I'm seeing this stuff and I'm thinking, I've never been super big on UFC stuff, but with these guys willing to stand up for what they believe in, for the fans willing to stand up for what they believe in, I'm getting excited for this. So Dana White comes out and they ask him, this reporter says, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about what they can say when they are up there with the UFC microphone. Dana Leash snaps back saying, I don't give a leash to anybody. They can say whatever they want. Now, this is a sport I like.
Yeah, I love that.
That's fantastic. And then you get Sean Strickland, who was the champ. I say was. I think he still is. And you have this split decision after the fight where they claim he lost the title. And so this is generating quite a bit of controversy. There's a lot of people saying, grow up, stop being a whiny little bitch. He lost. But I'll just put it this way, and then we can talk about it. There's a conspiracy theory. Of course, people are going to suggest this, that the reason Strickland was lost was not because he was the worst fighter, but because he's causing problems for the brand. So when people say to Dana White, you give your fighters a long leash, and then he says, I don't give anybody a leash. Dana White actually said publicly he thought Strickland won the fight. But there are people saying on Twitter, and I don't blame them, they're saying that when Bud Light comes and sponsors UFC and one of the champs starts ragging on Bud Light and putting serious pressure on them, there's going to be pressure to get him out if they can, to end the quote unquote era of Strickland. I don't know that I believe that. All I can say is this. I'm not a big UFC guy. I don't know or care about points and scoring. I get it exists. All I can say is I get really excited when, we've had Colby Covington here in the studio. It was awesome to meet this guy, someone willing to stand up for Trump publicly with no fear because these fighters have balls, and for Sean Strickland to defend the people of Canada wearing a Make Canada Great Again shirt. I tremendously love and respect the defense of the working people by people in these positions who can speak up and have influence. So I say, wow, I got to watch this. I want to see this guy fight. He's the champ. I watch a fight. I watch a guy win a fight. I watch them claim the other guy won the fight. I don't get it. I mean, I understand why they're claiming he lost. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. And it makes me feel like it's all fake. I don't know.
I didn't see the fight. You said he got knocked down 5 times?
No.
Strickland?
There were 6 takedowns, but I'll put it this way. If I see 2 guys fighting in the street, it's like the average person looks at that and says like, oh man, that guy's beating that guy up. That's basically what happened here. Strickland was beating the other guy up. And then in the end, they were like, yeah, well, he got knocked down a handful of times. And so the judges thought it went the other way. So we're giving him their guy the fight.
So the Supreme Court of MMA has ruled.
I got to tell you, I went to the UFC fight with Donald Trump in Las Vegas several months ago. It was an extraordinary experience. First of all, never has there been this much testosterone in one hall any place in the country. I mean, it was an all-American extravaganza. Nobody was snacking on tofu, if you know what I mean. And the reaction that Trump got was extraordinary, just extraordinary. Now, I'm a big fan of Colby Covington. I still haven't gotten over the fact that he lost, but you know what? He'll be back. His greatest victories lie ahead. That guy's got guts, and I'm absolutely convinced that he comes back.
I completely agree. That was another one of these fights. So with Colby, I was thinking he may actually have taken it in the last round. But again, like, I don't know. I'm like, for me, I watched that fight and I'm like, honestly, I have no idea. In the end, the final round, Colby absolutely, I think he won that final round. And then he said he thought he won the fight too. Watching the Strickland fight, that guy won a fight.
I feel like this is the kind of
so,
thing
too.
that Strickland will just be like, and now I'm more motivated than ever to do anything I can to be victorious. I mean, I've only heard him interviewed a couple times. I haven't watched UFC consistently in years, but he's a really tenacious person, and he is he's a very strong sense of self, and I think that really drives his desire to compete. And I think that's actually why so many people like him. Like, yes, his takes are kind of interesting and not what you expect, but more than anything, he is a person of intense conviction.
But as for, I really like and trust Dana White, so there's no way in the world he would wire a fight. I never understood their scoring system. I saw the same fight you did. I thought Strickland won, but what do I know? I'm not one of the judges.
Look at this. All that matters is Joe Rogan. He apparently agrees, so I defer to him.
And if Dana White also
the story from MMA Junkie. Joe Rogan surprised judges awarded Dricus du Plessis win over Sean Strickland. It's an amazing clip. I watched it. Rogan normally is commentating on these fights, and when the ruling came down, he says, "Wow, interesting, very interesting. I wonder how the people online feel about that, because we're not scoring it while we're watching it. We're just having fun. Were we wrong?" That's exactly how I felt when I watched this. I'm like, dude, I bought this pay-per-view thing. I'm super excited to support Sean Strickland. He's standing up for the little guy. It's exactly what we want to see in these sports. I watch a fight. I watched this guy win. It was close. Du Plessis is amazing. It was a really awesome fight. Strickland, his eyes covered in blood. It was good. And then they're just like, nah, he loses. And I'm like, what, man? So I don't know, dude. I don't understand it, I guess. We have this from verdictmma.com. A lot of people were sending me, where you've got a couple different metrics by which the fight was judged and scored, and it looks like the media scored it for Strickland, but the judges went the other direction on it. So it is what it is, man. I don't think it was I don't believe that it was rigged in the sense that like Dana White had anything to do with it. Dana White publicly stated he thought Strickland won too.
Yeah, that indicates there's going to be a rematch.
Rogan said that
create some animosity between the two fighters.
Think of the box office on that.
Yes. So I say shenanigans. It sucks. Whatever. He got robbed. People are like, he didn't get robbed. He just lost. I'm like, dude, that's what it means. Like, it was a close fight. We get that. They gave it to the other guy. He was robbed, meaning it should have slightly gone the other direction. But a rematch could be really good in that everything Strickland got to say will be amplified tenfold when we start building up to a potential rematch, which I really hope happens.
Yeah, I was thinking about the bread and circus. They say in failing empires, the empire gives its citizens bread and circus in order to keep them distracted and fed so they don't riot. And then and so this is the circus aspect. But the difference is that we've got mass media and internet video. Like Sean Strickland can make a video and like alter the minds of the masses in a day. The Romans didn't have, the gladiators didn't have that kind of influence on society.
Or their own Instagram pages where they can post clips or them working out or doing, I mean, like people become really devoted to a lot of athletes, but definitely UFC athletes who are just like, they personify something they aspire to be, right? They're tough, they're strong, they're like peak physical fitness. And this is a day and age where you can feel like a personal relationship to these athletes in a way that you never have before. It's crazy.
When we had Colby Covington on, I had a lot of people being like, oh man, because he's such a wild guy. And then he shows up and he's the nicest, most polite, honorable guy. And people need to understand that, right? That he's out there, he's being a personality, but he's a good regular dude. He knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. I'm a big fan, and it was really awesome to get to meet him. But I appreciate when, I see all the time. Let me put it this way. Why I like UFC so much. I've been skateboarding my whole life. I was skateboarding earlier today. Tried to do a kickflip, pivot, slipped out. It was fun. Didn't land it. All these pro skateboarders will hit me up being like, I'm a big fan of your show, man, but I can't say anything because I'll get fired or whatever. Oh, I'm so scared. And I'm like, man, it's like these guys who jump off buildings for a living, their balls dropped off. And then I see Colby Covington and Strickland, and I'm like, these guys will shout it to the high heavens. F you. I'll say whatever I feel like saying. Now that inspires me. And I'm like, these guys are great. So I like what UFC is doing. As you mentioned, more testosterone. What do you say? It's the most testosterone
I've ever seen in one place at one time.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of these guys. Yeah. But cultural victories, I guess, right? The fact that Trump can walk out in a urban Democrat stronghold and have the whole crowd cheering for him. This is You know,
It was pandemonium. It wasn't just cheering. He turned the place upside down. It was absolute ear-splitting pandemonium.
that's awesome.
I think he's the most famous guy on earth right now.
He is. Yeah.
Well, and people, I mean, look, I've known him a long time. I'm not allowed to say how old because he says it makes us both sound old. But the guy's energy level is just extraordinary. I mean, he's always required very little sleep. But through all of this, and I talked to him Sunday, he's upbeat, he's resolute, he's determined, he's extraordinarily confident. He's in a great mood. And he's surviving on not much sleep because remember, he wins the Iowa caucuses. Then he has to fly, landing in New York City at 3:30 in the morning, appear in court the next day through the afternoon, then fly back to New Hampshire, do a rally, then fly back to New York to appear in court in the morning. I mean, he's 77 years old, but he's got the stamina of a 26-year-old.
Were you friends way back? Like, what were you guys friends in business, or were you just friends?
I met him in 1979 when I recruited he and his father for the finance chairman to be members of the finance committee for Ronald Reagan's campaign for president of the United States in New York State. That's how we met.
And they both joined Reagan's finance committee?
They both raised substantial money for us.
Was that Don's first foray into politics?
If you're a New York City developer, you're always in politics, and you cover both sides. Remember, the city's dominated by Democrats, and Democrats control stuff like permitting and zoning. So Donald was friendly with all politicians of both parties. The first person in the country really to suggest that Trump should run for president was Richard Nixon. Nixon's in exile. He is a friend of George Steinbrenner, who owns the New York Yankees. He and Trump meet in Steinbrenner's box. Nixon knows I'd done some work for Trump. Trump knows I'm close to Nixon. Nixon calls me the next day. Well, I met your man. I said, sir, this guy could go all the way. I'm saying, you're saying he should run for governor? No. I said all the way. And then there's a famous letter which Nixon sits and hand writes to Trump telling him he should run for president. The New York Times has published
What year was it?
This had to be 80s, around 89,
Well, there's that,
87.
was it like he was on Oprah or something and he gets asked if he's going to run for president?
Yes. And you know what he says? Probably not, unless things got so bad that I had no choice.
Yeah.
And we came to that point.
I didn't know we were at that point in 2012. I just thought stuff was a little crazy, but I didn't realize like that the liberal economic order was morphing into this new world order, that it had been planned for 30 or 40 years, and I had no idea.
Well, in retrospect, we still weren't quite at that moment. So in 2012, he, I think, reluctantly endorsed Mitt Romney. He almost immediately had seller's remorse. Every time there's a debate, he would call me and say, "What's wrong with this guy? He's got no instinct for the jugular." And then it was New Year's Day of 2013 when he said, "I've applied to the Patent and Trademark Office to trademark the phrase 'Make America Great Again.'"
What year was that?
2013.
Yeah.
So I knew he was running in 2016.
Michael Moore tried claiming that Trump didn't actually want to run. It was, did you see that documentary he did, Fahrenheit 11/9? And he's saying something, was it Gwen Stefani or something like this? Like someone got a bigger NBC contract than Trump, and Trump was offended because he's the big shot, he's the apprentice. So he decided he would run for president just to bolster his recognition and then try and get a better contract, but then he accidentally won. It's the most insane thing. Michael Moore, what were you thinking? The dude, you say he trademarked MAGA
Right.
years in advance. Everybody knew this was coming.
But look, he talked about running in 2000. He talked about running in 1988. First time he went to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where he was 2 nights ago, to speak to the Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce. The first time there was speculation about him running. He was nowhere near ready. I don't think he wasn't that serious about it, but he wanted to kind of test the waters. Then he looked at it again in 2000. Jesse Ventura, who had become governor of Minnesota, had been obviously a very famous wrestler, urged him to do it. Ross Perot, his fellow billionaire, urged him to do it. He still wasn't ready. I think he toyed with it, but he never ran. By the way, he won the Reform Party primaries in Michigan and California weeks after withdrawing as a candidate and saying definitively he would not be a candidate. He looked at it seriously again in 2012. The reporters all insisted he's just burnishing the brand. He's never really going to run. This is all great PR genius. I think he was always seriously interested. He was waiting for the right time. 2016 turned out to be the right time.
And isn't that better? I mean, if what he said on Oprah, he's thinking about it. If he needed to run, then he would. I think that's much more of the like servant leadership that people don't actually give Trump credit for. It wasn't about his ego. It was about saying, I can actually change something. I can make a difference here.
It's cost him hundreds of millions of dollars. He was universally liked. Now he's a polarizing figure. It's cost him millions in legal fees. He's put up with an enormous amount of vituperation attacks on his family. He's doing it because he loves the country. He's not doing it because he needs more name ID.
The first Trump term was a magical time. Despite the cinder blocks they duct taped to Trump's feet, it was a great time. I mean, economically especially. And of course, 2020, things got wonky, but I don't blame Trump for that. And then you have the Biden years, and these past 3.5 years have been miserable. It's just been it's been
bad. Atrophy. The 2016
absolutely.
to 20 was like agitation. It was like you can use agitation to grow muscle. You know, you agitate the system to cause a growth response, or you cause an immune response. You cause a lot of things with agitation. But lately, it's just felt like it's falling apart. That's wasting away. Like there's no, I don't know.
It's a very hopeless time, especially if you're a young voter in this country.
Which is why, once again, he's exactly the right man at the right time. People who don't know him just have no idea how tough this guy is. He's extraordinarily tough. I worked for Richard Nixon, very tough guy. Greatest political comeback in American political history. I worked for Senator Bob Dole, another tough guy. He got hit by a shell in World War II. They told me never walk again, never have the use of it. I mean, he nursed himself back to health to a Senate career and to win a presidential nomination. One of the greatest men of the 20th century. Those guys were both very, very tough guys. Trump is tougher than either one of them.
What, you got into politics too during the Nixon era?
Yes, that was my first boss.
What got you involved in it?
Well, actually, I was originally a Goldwater zealot. When I was 12 years old, I read the book Conscience of a Conservative, and I realized that I was an anti-communist who believed in personal freedom and small government and a strong national defense and privacy. And then when Goldwater lost, I was crushed because I was 12 years old. What the hell do you know when you're 12 years old? And then I started reading about Nixon, and I concluded that he had been robbed of the 1960 election. So I wrote him a letter when he was in exile, practicing law on Wall Street. And I told him if he ever ran again, I wanted to sign up. And they kept my letter on file for 2 years. And then when he decided to make a comeback, I got a call, asked me if I wanted to come in and interview for a job.
You were in your 20s?
They were a little surprised when I was 16 years old.
Oh, you were 16?
Yeah, at that point.
But you got the job?
As a gopher, yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.